The warning alarm screamed through the crystal towers of Prax 7. Ambassador Thelrix pressed his translucent hands against the observation window and watched his worst nightmare unfold in the sky above. Black ships, hundreds of them, descended through the atmosphere like a plague of locusts. The Krell had found them. Thelrix had lived for 3 centuries, and in all that time, he had never known fear like this. The Velix were a peaceful species. They had no weapons, no armies, no concept of war. Their crystalline bodies could reshape matter and create beautiful structures, but they could not fight. They had never needed to fight. Until now. The first bombardment hit the eastern district. Thelrix felt the impact through the crystal floor beneath his feet. His people were dying. The Krell ships fired again and again, their weapons designed to shatter crystal structures into dust. The Velix screamed in pain as their homes collapsed around them. "Send the emergency broadcast," Thelrix ordered his communication officer. His voice shook despite his efforts to stay calm. "All channels. Maximum range. Someone must hear us." The message went out into the darkness of space, a desperate plea carried by electromagnetic waves. "This is Ambassador Thelrix of the Velix colony on Prax 7. We are under attack by the Krell swarm. We have no defenses. We are a peaceful people. Please, anyone who receives this message, we need help. Our people are dying. Please help us." Light years away, in the Grand Chamber of the Galactic Council, representatives from a dozen species gathered around the holographic display. They watched the distress signal with sadness in their various eyes, but no one moved to help. "The Velix colony will fall within 3 days," stated Counselor Vexmon, a tall being with purple skin and 4 arms. "Our nearest defense fleet is 2 weeks away. By the time we arrive, there will be nothing left to save." "We must try," argued another counselor, a small furry creature from the Lyran homeworld. "We cannot abandon them to the Krell." Vexmon shook his head slowly. "I am sorry, but we must think logically. The Krell swarm consists of 300 warships. Our defense fleet has only 75 vessels. We would lose many ships trying to save a colony that may already be lost. The Council cannot authorize such a mission." The other counselors nodded sadly. They had families too, worlds to protect. They could not risk everything for the Velix. The debate continued, but everyone in the chamber knew the truth. Prax 7 was doomed. On the colony world, Thelrix gathered the survivors in the central tower, the strongest structure they had. Children clung to their parents. The elderly sat quietly, their crystal bodies dimming with despair. More bombardments rocked the city. The Krell were not in a hurry. They would strip the planet of every resource, taking their time to crush every last Velix. Then something impossible happened. The communication console lit up with an incoming message. Thelrix rushed to read it, his heart's pounding. The message was short and written in basic galactic standard. "Received. Hold position. Help is coming." The origin coordinates made Thelrix's blood run cold. The message came from a quarantined zone, a region of space that every spacefaring species avoided. The coordinates pointed to a yellow star system in a dangerous sector. The system was marked in every galactic chart with warning symbols. Deathworld Zone. It came from Earth. Thelrix had heard stories about Earth, whispered tales that most species dismissed as exaggerations. A world of extreme temperatures that swung from freezing to boiling. A world covered in violent water that could swallow ships whole. A world filled with predators that hunted each other constantly. And somehow, life had evolved there. Intelligent life. The humans. The humans had made contact with the Galactic Council 40 years ago. They seemed friendly enough at first, eager to join the galactic community. But then came the Unity Games. A friendly competition between species to celebrate cooperation. The humans sent their athletes. What happened next became legend. Human athletes ran faster, jumped higher, and lifted more weight than should have been possible for their size. They didn't mean to hurt anyone. They were just competing normally, by human standards. But athletes from other species ended up in hospitals with broken bones and torn muscles just from trying to keep up. The Council had politely asked humanity to stay in their own sector of space after that. The humans had agreed, seeming embarrassed by the incident. They retreated to their death world and had not been seen in galactic affairs since, until now. In the Council chamber, the news of Earth's response caused panic. Councillor Vexmon's purple skin turned pale. They cannot be serious. The humans? The Deathworlders? They will make everything worse. Perhaps we should tell them not to come, suggested another councillor nervously. The Veliks need help. But humans? They are too dangerous. Too violent. The message has already been sent, said the Lyran councillor quietly. And honestly, what choice do the Veliks have? They will die without help. At least the humans are offering to try. Across the galaxy, in a military complex buried deep beneath Earth's surface, Admiral Tay Kang stood before a massive tactical display. He was 60 years old, with gray hair and scars from a dozen peacekeeping missions before Earth's quarantine. He had been there at the Unity Games. He remembered the fear in the other species' eyes when they realized how strong humans were compared to them. The distress call from Prax 7 played again on the speakers. The desperation in Ambassador Thelrix's voice cut through all the political nonsense. These were innocent people dying, and the galaxy was going to let it happen because helping was too risky. Assemble the fleet, Admiral Tay Kang ordered. I want our fastest ships ready to launch in 2 hours. We're going to Prax 7. His second-in-command hesitated. Sir, the Galactic Council has not authorized this mission. If we leave the quarantine zone, there could be diplomatic consequences. Admiral Tay Kang turned to face him, his eyes hard as steel. A species is dying while politicians debate. We're going. That's an order. Within the hour, 12 human warships prepared for departure. They were smaller than the massive vessels other species used, but they were built to Earth's demanding standards. Every human ship could survive re-entry through a planetary atmosphere. Every ship had redundant systems designed to keep working even when half the vessel was destroyed. They had to be that tough because space near Earth was filled with debris, radiation, and extreme conditions. Captain Han Wu boarded the TDS Indomitable, the fastest ship in the Terran Defense Fleet. His crew was already at their stations, running final checks. They were young and eager, trained for combat scenarios but never tested in actual war. That was about to change. The fleet launched from Earth, their engines burning bright as they accelerated toward the stars. They had 6 days of travel ahead of them, but Captain Han Wu planned to make it in 3. The Veliks didn't have 6 days. On Prax 7, another bombardment shattered the northern district. Thelrix held a crying child, whispering promises he wasn't sure he could keep. Help was coming, he told them. The Deathworlders were coming. He just hoped they would arrive in time. The 12 ships of the Terran Defense Fleet cut through space at speeds that would have terrified any galactic engineer. Captain Han Wu stood on the bridge of the Indomitable, watching the star charts scroll past. His crew worked around him with practiced efficiency, but he could feel the tension in the air. This was real. Engine status, Han Wu called out to his engineering team. Running at 130% capacity, Captain, came the reply through the intercom. The engines are heating up, but they'll hold. These babies were built for worse than this. Han Wu nodded. On Earth, engines had to withstand incredible forces. Ships launched through the atmosphere at speeds that created friction hot enough to melt metal. Human engineering didn't believe in safety margins. They believed in overbuilding everything until it was practically indestructible. Lieutenant Rin Na looked up from her tactical station. She was young, only 25, but her reflexes were among the fastest in the fleet. Growing up on Earth meant growing up on a planet where everything could kill you. Humans learned to react quickly or they didn't survive. Captain, I've been studying the data on the Krell swarm. 300 ships is a lot. Even for us. Noted, Han Wu replied. He trusted Rin Na's analysis. She had a gift for seeing patterns in chaos. What are we looking at? Rin Na brought up a holographic display showing the Krell ship formations. They fight in clusters, using numerical superiority to overwhelm targets. Their shields are strong against energy weapons, which is what most galactic species use. They're not expecting kinetic weapons. Note. Sergeant De Young laughed from the weapons station. He was a big man, even by human standards, with arms thick from years of training. Good. Let's introduce them to some Earth hospitality. Railguns and missiles never go out of style. The other ships in the fleet maintained formation around the Indomitable. Each captain commanded their vessel independently, but they all answered to Han Wu. They had trained together for years, running simulations of battles against hostile forces. The scenarios had always seemed extreme, paranoid even. Now, those extreme scenarios were about to become reality. Dr. He Sol made her way onto the bridge, carrying a medical kit. She was the chief medical officer, a woman in her 40s who had served in Earth's deep-sea research stations before joining the fleet. She had treated injuries from pressure changes, toxic gas exposure, and wildlife attacks. Space combat would be new, but she was ready. Captain, I've set up the medical bay for mass casualties, He Sol reported. We have enough supplies for 50 serious injuries. I hope we don't need it all. So do I, Doctor, Han Wu said quietly. He activated the ship-wide communication system. This is the captain speaking. In 2 days, we will reach Prax 7. We will be outnumbered 25-1. The enemy is expecting an easy victory. They think we're just another soft galactic species. They're wrong. He paused, choosing his next words carefully. The Veliks are peaceful people. They have no weapons, no way to defend themselves. The Galactic Council abandoned them because saving them was too risky. But we don't abandon people just because it's risky. We're humans. Risk is what we do. Show the galaxy what Deathworlders are made of. The crew responded with determined nods and quiet affirmations. They weren't warriors by choice. Most of them had joined the fleet to explore space, to see new worlds. But their planet had taught them how to survive. And survival meant fighting when you had to. In the crew quarters, Corporal Yuna Sung checked her combat gear. She was part of the Marine detachment, soldiers trained for ground operations. Her powered exosuit hung on the wall, a piece of technology that would have seemed like magic to most species. To humans, it was just another tool for surviving in hostile environments. Yuna had grown up near an active volcano in Korea. Her childhood had been spent learning evacuation routes and wearing breathing masks during ash storms. The exosuit reminded her of those masks, just bigger and much more protective. She could lift a small car while wearing it, and its armor could stop most small arms fire. Against the Krell's claws and acid, it should hold, she hoped. Sergeant Bo Jin, commander of the Marine unit, gathered his troops for a briefing. 20 soldiers sat in the cramped briefing room, listening intently. The Krell are insectoid, Bo Jin explained, showing images on a datapad. They have hard exoskeletons and sharp claws. They spit acid. On paper, they sound scary. But remember, on Earth, we have creatures just as dangerous. Scorpions, venomous spiders, army ants. We learned to deal with them. We'll deal with the Krell too. The Marines nodded. They understood. Every human grew up learning about the thousands of ways their planet could kill them. It made humans harder to scare than most species realized. Back on the bridge, Lieutenant Rin Na continued analyzing the tactical data. She noticed something interesting about the Krell battle patterns. Captain, the Krell fight, predictably. They use standard formations, textbook tactics. Their AI controls most of the fleet movements. Han Wu leaned forward. What are you thinking, Lieutenant? I'm thinking they've never fought anything like us before, Rin-Na said with a slight smile. Galactic species fight logically. They minimize losses, calculate risk, follow protocols. We fight like Earth taught us to fight. Messy. Unpredictable. Aggressive. Sergeant De Young grinned. Chaotic. I like it. The fleet pushed forward, their engines straining but holding. What should have taken 6 days was being compressed into 3. The ships groaned under the stress, metal expanding and contracting with the heat. Any galactic vessel would have torn itself apart. Human ships had been built expecting worse treatment. On the second day of travel, Han Wu received a message from Admiral Tai Kang back on Earth. The Admiral's face appeared on the main screen, looking serious. Captain, the Galactic Council has officially requested that we turn back. They say our presence will complicate the situation. Han Wu felt anger rise in his chest but kept his voice level. What does the Admiral advise? Admiral Tai Kang smiled grimly. The Council can file a complaint. We're not turning back. Save those people, Captain. Show the galaxy what humanity stands for. The transmission ended. Han Wu looked around at his crew. They had all heard the message. They all knew what it meant. Earth was officially defying the Galactic Council. There would be political consequences, diplomatic problems, maybe even sanctions. But they were going anyway. 300 Krell ships, Sergeant De Young mused, checking his weapon systems one more time. And 12 of us. Either we're incredibly brave or incredibly stupid. Why not both? Rin-Na replied, not looking up from her console. Dr. He-Sol laughed despite the tension. That's the human way. Brave and stupid in equal measure. The hours counted down. The fleet ran constant drills, practicing maneuvers that would make galactic tacticians dizzy. They practiced ramming enemy ships. They practiced fighting with half their systems offline. They practiced surviving impossible odds, because surviving impossible odds was humanity's specialty. On Prax 7, Ambassador Thel Rix watched the countdown timer. 3 days since the humans had sent their message. If they were coming, it would be soon. Another bombardment hit the Western District, killing dozens more Veliks. Their beautiful crystal city was being reduced to rubble. Do you really think they're coming? Asked his aide, a young Velix who had never known anything but peace. Thel Rix didn't know what to believe. The humans were a mystery, a species so different from anything else in the galaxy. But they had promised to help. That had to mean something. Yes, he said finally. They're coming. In space, above Prax 7, the Krell swarm detected incoming ships. 300 Krell vessels turned their sensors toward the new arrivals. Their AI calculated the threat level. 12 small ships. Unknown design. Threat assessment. Minimal. The Krell prepared to destroy the newcomers quickly, then return to stripping the planet below. It would be easy. They had the numbers. They had the weapons. What could 12 ships possibly do? They were about to find out what a Deathworld could produce when it decided to fight. The human fleet dropped out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of the Prax 7 system. Captain Han Wu immediately saw the devastation on his sensors. The beautiful crystal cities he had seen in the briefing files were now broken ruins. Smoke rose from dozens of impact sites. The Krell swarm orbited the planet like vultures circling a dying animal. 312 enemy vessels detected, Lieutenant Rin-Na reported, her voice steady despite the overwhelming numbers. They're forming up to intercept us. Han Wu activated the fleet-wide channel. All ships. This is indomitable. You know the plan. Stay loose, stay fast, and remember what we're fighting for. Make Earth proud. The response came from 11 other captains, their voices filled with determination. They were ready. They were scared, but they were ready. The Krell swarm moved into a standard defensive formation, creating a wall of ships between the humans and Prax 7. It was textbook tactics, the kind taught in every military academy across the galaxy. Overwhelming force, arranged to maximize firepower. Against any normal species, it would have been unbeatable. Humans were not normal. All weapons, engage at will, Hanwoo ordered. Rin Na. Get us in close. De Young. Light them up. The Indomitable accelerated forward, and the other human ships followed. They didn't maintain formation. They didn't follow any recognizable pattern. Each ship moved independently, weaving and dodging like fighters instead of capital ships. The Krell AI tried to predict their movements, and failed. There was no logic to track, no pattern to follow. Sergeant De Young pressed the firing button. The Indomitable's railgun fired, and a piece of metal the size of a telephone pole launched forward at 3% of light speed. In the vacuum of space, there was no air resistance to slow it down. The projectile hit a Krell ship dead center. The Krell shields, designed to deflect energy weapons, might as well have been made of paper. The kinetic force punched straight through the shield, through the hull, and out the other side. The Krell ship exploded in a ball of fire and debris. "Hit confirmed," De Young shouted. "Reloading!" All across the battlefield, human ships opened fire with rail guns. Metal slugs traveling at impossible speeds tore through the Krell formation. Ships exploded or spun out of control. Their crews dead before they even knew what hit them. The Krell had never faced kinetic weapons this powerful. Their shields were useless. The Krell swarm adapted quickly, spreading out to make themselves harder targets. They returned fire with plasma cannons and energy beams. The human shields absorbed some hits, but several ships took damage. Warning alarms blared on the Indomitable as an energy beam grazed the port side. "Shield at 70%, Rin Na called out. Adjusting course, the Indomitable spun on its axis, a maneuver that would have torn apart a galactic ship. Human ships were built stronger, designed to handle the stress. Han Wu felt the Gi forces press him into his chair despite the artificial gravity compensators. It was uncomfortable, but survivable. Humans had evolved to handle G forces from their predator ancestors, chasing prey across rough terrain. "Target their command ships," Han Wu ordered, the big ones coordinating the swarm. Rin Na's fingers flew across her console, marking targets faster than the computer could process. Her Deathworld reflexes gave her an edge. She could see patterns in the chaos that the AI missed. Firing solution locked. 3 command ships identified. The human fleet focused their fire. Railgun rounds and missiles converged on the Krell command vessels. The first command ship's shields flickered and died under the assault. The second volley punched through its hull. Inside, the Krell coordination officers died instantly as their ship broke apart. Without coordination, the Krell formation started to fall apart. Ships collided with each other, trying to reposition. The disciplined wall became a confused mob. "Press the attack," Hanwoo ordered. The Indomitable dove into the heart of the Krell swarm, weapons firing continuously. It was insane, suicidal by galactic standards. One ship diving into 300 enemies. But Han Wu knew something the Krell didn't. Humans evolved from pack hunters who took down prey much larger than themselves. Charging into danger was in their DNA. Other human ships followed, creating chaos wherever they went. The TDS, relentless, commanded by Captain Park Min, rammed a Krell destroyer at full speed. Both ships' shields collapsed from the impact, but the human ship's reinforced hull held while the Krell ship crumpled like an aluminum can. Park Min backed his damaged vessel away and kept firing. Sergeant De Young switched to missiles. These weren't the careful, expensive guided missiles that galactic species used. These were human missiles, built with one purpose: maximum destruction. Each missile carried hundreds of smaller warheads that separated before impact, creating clouds of shrapnel that tore through multiple targets. "Firing missile spread," De Young announced. 20 missiles launched from the Indomitable, arcing toward the densest part of the Krell formation. They exploded simultaneously, and suddenly 100 Krell ships were hit by thousands of metal fragments. Shields flickered and died. Hulls were punctured. Ships vented atmosphere and crew into the void. On Prax 7, Ambassador Thel Rix and the remaining Velix watched the battle through their sensors. They couldn't believe what they were seeing. 12 ships were fighting 300 and winning. The humans moved like demons, attacking with a ferocity that shouldn't exist in civilized space. "They fight like animals," whispered Thelrix's aide, horrified and amazed at the same time. "No," Thelrix corrected softly. "They fight like survivors. Their planet taught them this." The battle raged for 30 minutes. The Krell kept trying to surround individual human ships to use their numbers advantage. But human ships didn't stay still. They accelerated and decelerated at rates that would have killed most species from the G-forces alone. They spun and rolled in 3 dimensions, making themselves nearly impossible to track. Lieutenant Rin Na's console lit up with warnings. "Captain, we have 14 Krell ships trying to flank us. Let them come," Hanwoo replied calmly. "De Young, prepare close-range weapons. Rin Na, spin us 180 degrees on my mark." The Krell ships closed in, thinking they had the Indomitable trapped. Their weapons charged, ready to tear the human ship apart. They never got the chance. "Mark!" Hanwoo shouted. The Indomitable spun faster than should have been possible. The humans on board felt the G-forces, but stayed conscious through training and biology. The Krell ships, expecting to hit the Indomitable's rear engines, instead found themselves facing its forward weapons at point-blank range. De Young fired everything. Railguns, missiles, even the emergency defense lasers all fired at once. At this range, it was impossible to miss. 7 Krell ships simply ceased to exist, blown apart by concentrated fire. The other 7 broke off, their AI finally recognizing the danger. The human fleet pressed their advantage. They targeted engines, weapons, anything that would disable Krell ships. They didn't waste ammunition on kills when a disabled ship was just as good. Earth's limited resources had taught humans to fight efficiently. Dr. Hae Sol worked frantically in the medical bay as wounded crew members were brought in. A young ensign had been thrown against a bulkhead during a hard maneuver, breaking his arm. She set it quickly, gave him painkillers, and sent him back to his station. There was no time for proper treatment. That would come after the battle. If they survived, the Krell swarm was down to 200 ships, then 150. Their formation was completely broken. Individual ships tried to flee, but human vessels hunted them down. Captain Park Min's damaged Relentless limped after a fleeing Krell carrier, its railgun still functioning despite half the ship being on fire. "This is Relentless," Park Min transmitted. "One more kill before we have to pull back." His final shot hit the Krell carrier's engines. The massive ship lost power and drifted helplessly. Park Min's crew cheered weakly. Exhausted from the battle and from fighting the fires on their ship, Han Wu assessed the battlefield. Half the Krell swarm was destroyed or disabled. The remaining ships were scattered, disorganized, and terrified. He had never seen an AI show fear before, but the Krell ships were definitely behaving erratically now. "All ships, form on me," Han Wu ordered. "Let's finish this." The 11 remaining human ships regrouped. They were battered, smoking, and running low on ammunition, but they were still fighting. They moved as one toward the remaining Krell vessels, and the Krell did something unexpected. They ran. The surviving Krell ships broke orbit and fled into deep space, abandoning their ground forces and their mission. They had come to strip a planet of its resources. Instead, they had learned what happened when you attacked someone under Earth's protection. Rin Na watched them go on her sensors, hardly believing it. "Captain, they're retreating. We won." Han Wu let out a breath he didn't know he'd been holding. They had won the space battle. But he knew this wasn't over. "Good work, everyone. Now, scan the surface. We still have Krell ground forces down there with the Velix." The celebration died down as reality set in. They had won in space. But the battle for Prax 7 had just begun. The victory in space had been clean and quick. The battle on the ground would be different. Captain Han Wu studied the tactical display showing Prax 7's surface. The Krell had landed over 5,000 troops before their fleet retreated. Those soldiers were now scattered across the crystal cities, hunting the Velix, who had nowhere to run. "Sergeant Bo Jin, are your Marines ready?" Han Wu asked through the communication channel. Bo Jin's gruff voice came back immediately. "Sir, we've been ready since we left Earth. Just give us the green light." Han Wu looked at Lieutenant Rin Na. She had finished calculating the drop zones, marking safe areas where the drop pods wouldn't crush any Velix structures. "Lieutenant? Drop coordinates locked, Captain. 20 landing zones across the capital city. We can deploy all Marines simultaneously." Han Wu nodded. "Sergeant Bo Jin, you are cleared for deployment. Bring our people home safe." In the deployment bay, 20 Marines climbed into their drop pods. Each pod was basically a metal coffin designed to fall from orbit and slam into the surface at terminal velocity. The pods had minimal steering, basic heat shields, and just enough cushioning to keep the Marine inside from being turned into paste on impact. By galactic standards, it was insane. By human standards, it was Tuesday. Corporal Yuna Sung sealed her exosuit and climbed into her pod. The suit was heavier than she remembered, loaded with extra ammunition and supplies. Through her helmet display, she could see the vital signs of her fellow Marines. Everyone's heart rate was elevated. Fear and excitement mixed together in equal parts. "Listen up." Sergeant Bo Jin's voice came through their helmets. "The Velix are counting on us. They're civilians. Never hurt anyone in their lives. The Krell are slaughtering them for sport. We're going down there to stop that. Stay sharp. Watch your corners. And remember your training. We're Marines. We don't leave anyone behind." The drop pods launched. Yuna felt the acceleration press her into the padded interior. The pod shook violently as it hit the atmosphere, heat building up on the exterior, as friction converted speed into energy. Through the small window, she could see fire streaming past. This was the part that always got her. The moment where she had to trust that the pod's heat shield would hold. It held. The pods always held because human engineers didn't know how to build things that broke easily. The surface rushed up to meet them. Yuna braced for impact. The pod's retro rockets fired at the last second, slowing the descent just enough. Then she hit the ground with a bone-jarring crash that would have killed any unprotected human. Inside her exosuit, she felt it, but survived it. The pod door blew open. Yuna grabbed her rifle and stepped out into a nightmare. The Crystal City was beautiful even in ruins. Shattered towers rose like broken glass, catching the sunlight and scattering it in rainbow patterns. But between the beauty lay bodies. Velix civilians, their crystalline forms cracked and shattered, lay where they had fallen. Some were still moving weakly, dying slowly. Yuna felt rage build in her chest. This wasn't war. This was murder. Krell signatures detected, her helmet display warned. Multiple contacts, 200 meters northeast. The other Marines were emerging from their pods, forming up automatically. Sergeant Bo Jin's voice cut through the channel. "Alpha Team, secure the western sector. Bravo Team, you're with me on the eastern approach. Charlie Team, protect the Velix survivors. Move out." Yuna was with Bravo Team. They moved through the ruined city, their heavy boots crunching on crystal debris. The exosuits made them stronger and faster, but they still had to be careful. One wrong step could bring down a weakened structure. The first Krell appeared around a corner. It was massive, easily 3 meters tall, with a black exoskeleton that looked like armor and serrated claws that dripped with acid. Its compound eyes locked onto the Marines, and it let out a shrieking sound that probably meant something threatening in its language. Private Li Tae fired first. His rifle used standard ammunition, nothing fancy, but fired at high velocity. The bullets hit the Krell's exoskeleton and cracked it. The creature shrieked again, this time in pain, and charged forward. It was fast, faster than any Earth insect. But the Marines were faster. Sergeant Bo Jin, sidestepped the charge, and slammed his armored fist into the Krell's head. The creature's exoskeleton crunched, and it dropped like a stone. "They're tough but brittle," Bo-Jin observed. "Keep hitting them hard." More Krell poured out of the buildings, dozens of them. They swarmed toward the Marines with murderous intent. These were the troops who had been hunting defenseless Velix. Now they faced soldiers from a planet that produced apex predators as its dominant species. The battle was brutal and close. The Krell tried to overwhelm the Marines with numbers, slashing with their claws and spitting acid. Yuna felt acid splash against her armor, heard it sizzle as it tried to eat through the metal. But Earth materials were designed to resist corrosion. The suit held. She grabbed a Krell that got too close and threw it into two others, sending all three tumbling. Her exosuit amplified her strength, letting her manhandle creatures that outweighed her by 100 kilograms. It felt good. These things had killed innocents. Now, they were learning what happened when you picked a fight with Deathworlders. Private Li Te took a claw to the chest. The impact knocked him down, and for a moment, Yuna thought he was dead. Then Li Te laughed, got back up, and shot the Krell point blank. "Gonna take more than that, Bug." The Krell were learning that humans didn't go down easy. Even when hit, they kept fighting. Even when injured, they kept moving. It was terrifying to face an enemy that simply refused to die. Across the city, the other Marine teams were having similar success. Alpha Team cleared the western sector building by building, finding huddled groups of Velix and escorting them to safety. Charlie Team had set up a defensive perimeter around the main survivor shelter, creating a ring of armor and weapons that no Krell could penetrate. Dr. Hay Sol had landed with a medical pod, setting up a field hospital in the ruins of a crystal tower. The first casualties arrived quickly. A Marine with a broken leg from a bad landing, a Velix civilian who had been slashed by Krell claws. She worked on both with equal care. Her hands steady despite the sounds of battle echoing through the city. "Hold still," she told the Velix, whose name was Thelnix. She applied a synthetic bandage to the crystal being's wounds. Human medicine wasn't designed for crystal-based life forms, but the basics were universal. Stop the bleeding, clean the wound, prevent infection. Thelnix watched her with wide eyes, amazed that this alien creature cared enough to help. "Why do you help us?" Thelnix asked weakly. "Your people were told to stay away from the galaxy. You could have ignored our call." "Doctor," Hazel smiled as she worked. "Because that's what humans do. We're stubborn that way. Someone needs help, we help. Even if it's risky. Maybe especially if it's risky." Sergeant Bo-Jin's team pushed deeper into the city, hunting the largest concentrations of Krell. They found a group of about 50 Krell soldiers, surrounding a building full of Velix children. The Krell were taking their time, enjoying the fear they were causing. Bo-Jin didn't give them a chance to enjoy it longer. "Light them up." The Marines opened fire from 3 directions at once. The Krell, caught in the crossfire, tried to scatter but had nowhere to go. It was over in seconds. 50 enemy soldiers lay dead or dying, and not a single Marine had been hit. Yuna kicked open the door to the building. Inside, dozens of young Velix huddled together, their small, crystalline bodies trembling. They looked at her with fear, seeing only a metal monster covered in weapons. Yuna retracted her helmet so they could see her face. She smiled as gently as she could. "It's okay. We're here to help. You're safe now." The children didn't understand her language, but they understood the tone. One brave young Velix slowly approached her. Yuna knelt down to be less intimidating. The child reached out and touched her armored hand, feeling the warmth of the metal. "Come on," Yuna said softly. "Let's get you to somewhere safe." The battle for Prax 7 continued for 3 more hours. The Marines systematically cleared the city, building by building, street by street. The Krell fought desperately, knowing they had no ships to retreat to. They died fighting, because humans gave them no choice. By the time the sun set on Prax 7, the last Krell soldier had been neutralized. Sergeant Bo-Jin did a final head count. All 20 Marines were alive. 8 had injuries ranging from minor to serious, but they would all survive. Dr. Hay's soul would make sure of that. More importantly, over 3,000 Velix civilians had been saved. They had been hours away from extinction. Now they were alive, surrounded by the strange metal warriors from Earth who had crossed the galaxy to help them. Captain Han Wu received the report from orbit. Surface secured, Captain. 0 Velix casualties from our engagement. The city is clear. Han Wu felt the tension drain from his body. They had done it. Against 300 ships and 5,000 ground troops, they had won. He activated the fleet-wide channel. All ships. This is the captain. Mission accomplished. The Velix are safe. Well done, everyone. Earth should be proud. In the ruins of the Crystal City, Ambassador Thelrix walked among the human Marines. They were removing their helmets, sharing water with Velix survivors, helping rebuild damaged structures. These were the Deathworlders, the monsters the galaxy feared, and they were using their terrifying strength to lift rubble and rescue trapped civilians. Thelrix approached Sergeant Bojin. The Marine was bandaging his own arm where acid had burned through his suit. "Thank you," Thelrix said simply. "You saved my people." "John Arrest. Wei Jing. You saved my people." Bojin looked at the Velix ambassador and shrugged. "Someone had to. Glad we could help." It was such a simple answer. Such a human answer. They had risked everything, traveled across the galaxy, fought impossible odds, and their response was just, someone had to. Thelrix realized that this was what made humans special, not their strength, or their weapons, or their violence. It was their refusal to stand by when someone needed help. 3 days after the battle, Captain Han Wu stood in the central plaza of the Velix capital city and watched his crew work alongside the survivors. The plaza had been a beautiful garden of crystal sculptures before the Krell attack. Now it was rubble and broken glass. But humans and Velix worked together to rebuild it, piece by piece. Corporal Yuna Sung used her exosuit's strength to lift a massive piece of crystal that had fallen from a tower. 5 Velix worked together to guide it back into place, using their natural ability to reshape crystal to fuse it seamlessly. Yuna set it down carefully, and the Velix workers patted her armored leg in thanks. She smiled. It felt good to build instead of destroy. Lieutenant Rin Na sat with a group of Velix elders, sharing rations from the human ships. The elders were fascinated by the food, though they found it impossibly spicy by their standards. Everything from Earth was intense, Rin Na explained. Their planet didn't believe in moderation. Even the food was extreme. "I don't understand," said one elder, whose name was Velmath. "Your people are so strong, so fierce in battle. But here, you are gentle. You help us rebuild. You share your food even though your own supplies are limited. Which is the real human nature?" Rin Na thought about the question for a moment. "Both," she said finally. "Earth made us fighters because we had to fight to survive. But it also made us helpers because we couldn't survive alone. Humans are pack animals. We protect our pack. Right now, you're part of our pack." Velmath didn't fully understand, but he appreciated the sentiment. These Deathworlders were more complex than the galaxy gave them credit for. Dr. Hay Sol worked in her field hospital, which had become a permanent fixture in the plaza. She treated both human and Velix patients with equal dedication. The Velix had been amazed by human medicine. Their own medical knowledge was limited because their crystalline bodies healed slowly but almost always survived injuries. Humans, being fragile and easily killed, had developed incredibly advanced medical technology just to keep themselves alive. A young Marine, Private Kim Soo, came in with a wound that was already infected. Haysol cleaned it, applied antibiotics, and gave him a stern lecture about keeping his injuries clean. "Your ancestors survived plagues and diseases that killed millions. Don't let a simple infection take you out," soldier. Kim Soo nodded sheepishly. Sergeant Bo Jin walked through the city with Ambassador Thel Rix, surveying the reconstruction efforts. The Krell had destroyed almost 40% of the capital. But the Veliks were rebuilding with human help. It would take months, maybe years, but the city would live again. Your people are remarkable, Thel Rix said to Bo Jin. The galaxy speaks of humans as violent, dangerous, barely civilized. But I see civilization in everything you do. True civilization. Not the pretend peace of the Council, Bo Jin chuckled. We're not perfect. We fight. We argue. We make mistakes. But we try to do the right thing. That's all anyone can do. They watched as Sergeant Dae Young used the Indomitable's tractor beam to lift a collapsed building's roof, allowing Velik's workers to safely recover trapped belongings from inside. The big sergeant was surprisingly gentle with the controls, treating the crystal structure like it was made of paper. The peaceful moment was interrupted by a loud announcement from the communication systems. Attention all personnel. The Galactic Council fleet has arrived. Captain Han Wu felt his jaw tighten. The Council. 3 weeks late, arriving after the battle was won, and the dying was done. He walked to the landing pad where the Council ships were deploying their shuttles. His crew gathered behind him, standing in a loose formation that somehow managed to look both casual and threatening. The Council delegation emerged from their shuttle. At the front was Councillor Vexmon, the purple-skinned official who had argued against helping the Veliks. He looked at the scene around him with obvious surprise. The city was damaged but standing. The Veliks were alive. The humans were here, calm and collected, like they had just finished a routine mission. Captain Han Wu, Vexmon said formally, you violated the quarantine protocols. You deployed weapons that are banned under galactic law. You engaged in combat operations without Council authorization. You have created a serious diplomatic incident. Han Wu let him finish, then spoke calmly. We saved 3,000 lives. That is not the point. Vexmon's skin darkened with anger. You cannot simply ignore galactic law because you think you know better. There are procedures, protocols, rules that must be followed. Your rules left innocent people to die, Lieutenant Rin Na said quietly from behind Han Wu. Your procedures took too long. Your protocols killed them as surely as Krell weapons would have. Admiral Tae Kang's voice suddenly came through on the communication channel, broadcast for everyone to hear. He had been listening from Earth. Counselor, Vexmon, let me make something very clear. My people responded to a distress call. We saved lives. If your laws say that was wrong, then your laws are broken. If you want to punish us for helping, go ahead and try. But know this. Earth is no longer staying in its quarantine zone. We're done being quiet. The plaza fell silent. Every human, every Velix, every council member heard those words. It was a declaration. Humanity was stepping onto the galactic stage, whether the council wanted them or not. Vexmon sputtered, looking for words. Before he could respond, Ambassador Thel Rix stepped forward. His crystalline body caught the sunlight, making him appear to glow. When he spoke, his voice carried across the plaza with natural authority. Counselor Vexmon, the Velix civilization formally requests that the Galactic Council recognize Earth as a full member species. Furthermore, we request that the quarantine on human space be lifted immediately. These beings risked everything to save us when you would not. They have earned their place among the stars. 10. Other voices joined in. Velix civilians who had been saved, Marine who had fought, even some of the council delegation's own staff who had seen the aftermath of the battle. The tide was turning, and Vexmon knew it. The council will discuss this matter, Vexmon said stiffly. But understand that there will be consequences for these actions. We'll deal with the consequences, Han Wu replied. We always do. The council delegation retreated to their ships. As they lifted off, Captain Han Wu received a private message from one of the younger counselors. a Lyran named Pip Rex. Many of us in the council are glad you came, Captain. The old guard fears change, but change is coming. Earth has allies, whether you know it or not. Over the next 2 weeks, the human fleet remained at Prax 7, helping with reconstruction and training Velix volunteers in basic defense. The galaxy needed to know that the Velix were no longer helpless prey. Sergeant Bo Jin personally trained a group of 50 Velix in self-defense tactics, modifying human combat techniques for their crystalline bodies. It was strange watching peaceful beings learn to fight, but necessary. The galaxy was dangerous. The Velix had learned that the hard way. News of Earth's intervention spread across the galaxy faster than any ship could travel. The footage of the battle, recorded by Velix sensors, was shared on every network. 12 human ships defeating 300 Krell vessels. Marines fighting hand-to-hand with creatures twice their size. Deathworlders using their terrifying abilities not for conquest, but for protection. Then the messages started coming in. Distress calls from other species, small colonies under attack by pirates or raiders. Messages asking for Earth's help. Some were desperate. Some were embarrassed. All of them were sincere. Admiral Tae Kang received them all at Earth Defense Command. He spread the messages across his desk and looked at them for a long time. Each one represented lives in danger, people who needed help that the Galactic Council wouldn't provide. Each one would put human lives at risk. He approved every single one. The orders went out to the fleet. The quarantine was over. Human ships would spread across the galaxy, responding to those who needed help, not as conquerors, not as mercenaries, as protectors. Captain Han Wu received his new assignment while still at Prax 7. The Indomitable and 5 other ships would head to the Outer Rim, where mining colonies were under attack by a pirate fleet. It would be dangerous. It would be difficult. It was exactly the kind of mission humans were built for. Looks like we're not going home yet, Lieutenant Rin Na observed, reading the orders over his shoulder. Would you want to? Han Wu asked with a slight smile. Rin Na grinned. No, sir. I wouldn't want to. The day before the fleet departed, the Velix held a ceremony in the rebuilt plaza. Ambassador Thelrix presented each human crew member with a crystal sculpture, unique pieces of art that would never break or fade. They were gifts meant to last forever, just like the gratitude the Velix felt. Corporal Yuna Sung received hers from the young Velix child she had rescued. The child had crafted it personally, a small crystal shaped like a star. Yuna knelt down to accept it, and the child hugged her armored leg. No words were spoken, none were needed. As the human fleet prepared to leave Prax 7, thousands of Velix gathered to watch. They didn't cheer or celebrate. That wasn't their way. Instead, they simply stood in silence, their crystalline bodies reflecting light in a rainbow of colors. It was their way of saying goodbye and thank you at the same time. The Indomitable lifted off, followed by the other ships. They climbed through the atmosphere and into space, leaving behind a world they had saved and people they had protected. Dr. Haysol watched the planet shrink on the view screen and felt satisfied. This was why she had joined the fleet. To make a difference. All ships, this is Admiral Tae Kang. The Admiral's voice came through on the fleet channel. I've been reviewing the distress calls we've received. There are 17 colonies under immediate threat, 23 more with potential security concerns, and the Council is requesting our help with a pirate problem in Sector 7, though they're too proud to admit they need us. Han Wu smiled. The Council was coming around, slowly. Orders, sir? Split the fleet. Send ships where they're needed most. And Captain Han Wu? Remember what we're fighting for. We're not trying to control the galaxy. We're just trying to make it a little safer for everyone. Understood, sir. The Indomitable is ready. The fleet split up, each ship heading to where they were needed. The TDS Indomitable set course for the Outer Rim, its engines burning bright against the darkness of space. Inside, The crew prepared for whatever came next. They were humans. They were Deathworlders. And they had just shown the galaxy what that really meant. Not monsters. Not conquerors. Just people who refused to look away when someone needed help. People who survived a hell world and decided to use that strength to protect others instead of dominate them. The galaxy had feared Earth for so long. Now it was learning to hope instead. Hope that when darkness came, when danger threatened, when all seemed lost, a message would come from that quarantined sector of space. A message that said, "Help is coming," and it always would be. Because that was what humans did. Captain Han-Woo sat in his chair on the bridge, watching the stars streak past as they jumped to faster-than-light travel. Lieutenant Rin Na worked at her console, already analyzing their next mission. Sergeant Dae Young cleaned his weapons, humming an old Earth song. Dr. Hae Sol prepared her medical bay for the inevitable casualties. They were ready. They were always ready. Earth had made sure of that. The Indomitable raced toward the outer rim, toward danger and duty, and the chance to save more lives. Behind them, across the galaxy, other human ships did the same. The age of Earth's isolation was over. The age of humanity's protection had begun.